going to do like a live demo. Now, if you guys want to refer to the video, I'm just going to post it up on YouTube. So welcome back. I guess a lot of kids are back to school. Today what we're going to cover is the Revit basic schedule. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to show you how to create schedule, as well as kind of like how to touch it up a little bit so that make it look presentable. Okay. Okay, who's the session for? So typically what I like to do is that I like to focus this more on everybody. Okay, if you are used Revit before, you need a refresher, this is a session for you. And I know that some users that are using AutoCAD and they have never dealt into Revit. This one may be a good course for you, okay, because you will be going into Revit at some point. I don't know when, but if you do, you might have to refer to some of this video in the future just to get yourself updated. The other thing is that if you're an expert in scheduling, this session is going to be showing you like the quick way how to create one, and then you can use it for multiple purposes. Now, I also put in no experience required. Okay, if you know how to do scheduling, let's say in Excel or AutoCAD, you know, Revit is basically the same thing. Now, typically how you tackle Revit schedule. Now, what I typically do is that I like to do it in like really simple steps. Okay, you guys can follow through. The first step I always do is that you want to define your end goal and ask yourself what you want. Okay, first visualize the result. Okay, the next step you do is that you deconstruct the end goal and select the parameter what you get your result. So basically what you do is that you get your result first, and then you deconstruct it and say, what do you need to achieve the result? Step 3 is just to verify, make sure that, you know, whatever you see on your model is the same as your result. Okay, it's just a simple thing. Perfect example would be parking count. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to do like a sample of this. So the first thing you want to do is that you want to know what's the parking count. Okay, that is your result. The next thing you want to do is that you want to go backbone. It's like, what do you need out of that backbone? First thing you need is your count. Okay. Next thing you want to do is that you want to know where your parking is going to be at level. And then the third one you want to know is that what kind of a parking type. You're going to have small, you're going to have regular, and you have handicaps. Sometimes you have tandem, and you have multiple variations. Third is that you want to make sure you verify stuff so that you don't get any error. Like there's sometimes when you select an object, it will give you a warning sign, right? So you want to verify that your schedule is actually meant it's good. If you have a warning sign, it tells you that sometimes object overlaps, and you have to delete that, or else schedule count is going to be totally different than what you have. Okay. I always tell people always check for verification because sometimes people will make mistakes. Now, Revit default schedule, they're not very appealing. So every time when you create a schedule, it's going to look like this. Okay, nothing special. Today, I'm just going to show you how you kind of spice it up a little bit so that you can actually make it more presentable. Now, a couple of tricks. I always tell people is that Revit schedule is transferable. What tends to happen is that if you create one template for your schedule, you can copy the schedule from one project to another. You can copy and paste schedule to multiple sheets. So let's say if you insert in a schedule into a sheet and you want to copy it to multiple sheets. For example, Keynote Legend is a perfect example, or elevation material. You can do that. So what you do is that you copy it, and then you just copy it, and then you just paste it in multiple sheets, and it's going to place it in the correct location. Okay. All right, let's start our demo. Okay, I'm just going to exit out of this. Now, you guys, you can interrupt me anytime. Just ask any question. Okay. Today, I'm going to just start with regular projects. So the first thing you're going to do is that you're going to start with any project, and you want to create like a parking schedule. The first thing you want to do is that when you create something, you want to go to the view, okay? Click on the schedule right here. Click on this. Now, there's the differences, okay? So you have schedule, there's a graphic column schedule, material takeoff, sheet list, note block, and view list. Most of the time, I would be focusing on schedule quantities. If you click on the schedule graphic, this is meant for structural engineer, okay? What they do is that they do like a column diagram, like of all the loads and all that stuff. This is their realm. Material takeoff is mostly used for, you know, if you're a contractor that wants to, you know, get materials out of this is a schedule for them. Sheet lists, if you are creating, let's say you want to create a drawing list of your project, you just click on this. Note block, I call them as like modify your schedule, right? You can use note block. What happens is that you can create any objects and then just basically schedule anything out of that symbol. Last one is just a view list. So basically it grabs whatever view you have in here and then just generate a list. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this schedule quantities. Okay, in here you're going to start with like what kind of categories you want. Now on the right side you will see there is schedule, building components, and schedule key. I would not get into schedule key because that's like another kind of a topic more advanced. But today I'm just going to basically just talk about just creating schedule. You can filter stuff. Let's say, for example, you're not going to use architectural. Oh, well, you're going to use architectural, but you're not going to use structural, mechanical, electrical piping. You can always check this schedule off, right? So you basically reduce the schedule to the architectural side of things. A couple of things to note. Not every object inside Revit can be scheduled. Perfect example would be if you want to know fascia, and fascia is attached to a roof. Well, actually, you do. Okay. In the past, what happened is that certain element would not get scheduled. Okay. In the newer version, as they keep updating Revit, a lot of your objects is going to get scheduled. Okay. In the past, some of them, like for example, fascia, you can never get scheduled out of it. Column is a perfect example. Architectural column. Okay. In the past, they just turn it off. I don't know why, but now you can schedule them. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go to and pick the parking. Okay, that's the first thing you're going to do is that leave alone parking schedule. Okay, next thing you want to know is that what object, like what field you want to get out of it. First thing I'm going to say is that you want count because you have to know how many parkings you have inside your project. The next thing you want to do is that you want to know what level they're supposed to be. So here I'm just going to click on level. Okay. And lastly, you want to know is that what kind of a type they're going to have. You can choose family and type, okay? Or you can choose what's known as the type itself, okay? If you have certain family and certain type that you want it to be categorized, right, then I would just say just add this in. It's no shame to add multiple objects in there, okay? First, I'm going to use family and type, and then you're going to use type as well. Now, the other thing I always put in is model, okay? Model is a type parameter. So those are basically default in all Revit projects, right? So when you add in any objects, model is good. That way you can add in like a word or something. This also goes for type comment, all right? You can also use type comment, okay, to filter things out. And finally, I'm just going to say description as well. I'm just going to put it in there so you can actually adjust whatever you need. The next thing you have is that you have a filter, okay? What filter does is that if you want certain parking to kind of show up and certain parking do not want to show up, like for example, loading is a perfect example, then you go filter and then we're just going to go step by step, okay? So this is the perfect way to kind of like, you know, just don't schedule anything that's loading. Next thing you want to do is that you want to sort, okay? How you want to sort it is that it really depends on what you want out of it. If you want to schedule by level, let's say, for example, I need to know the parking count for level, then the first thing you want to do is that you have to choose the level as your first thing to organize. If you want your type to be, let's say you want to know the total type for regular, you want to know the total type of small stalls or handicap, then that would be the first on the list. So it really depends what you want. So you kind of have to ask that question. Now, rather than going, like every time by default, it's always going to give you itemize every item. I always check it off because what it does is that it's going to create a huge list, okay? The only time you want to put in itemize every item is that if you want to do room schedule, that you want every room to be unique, then you would check this on. Most of the time when you're doing counting, check it off, okay, so that you don't get into that issue. For grand total, what I typically do is that I like to do total only, all right? Now, there's several things. You can say title, count, and total. Title and total, count, and total only. Now, title, count, and total means that if you have, let's say, an area, right? If you want to know the total, it's going to calculate that area in square footage. Count, it means that how many objects are in there. So they would just do a count. Title means that you can customize this if you have like a grand total or a total or subtotal, whatever you want to call this. This is where you kind of customize it, okay? For now, I'm just going to say total only. And I'm just going to say split it by level for now. That's just a demonstration. Inside here, you have more, okay? Each of this field, you can customize them. Now, the last thing I want to do is that I want this to calculate total. If you uncheck this, it will not calculate everything, okay? It will just give you a blank. I'm just going to demonstrate what it means, but if you check this on and chop this off. Lastly, there's appearances. I'm just going to, it just basically show you how your schedule is going to display. So now I'm just going to go ahead and just set it up by level, okay? And this is what you get, right? You have a total, okay? You have a count, that's P5, and then P4, P3, P2, blah, 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 okay? You notice that it doesn't give you a total count, okay? The reason why is that you have to go back, click on the count, and click on the title only. And what it does is that it would just give you that total, okay? Now, what I mentioned before is that you notice that there is type comment, there's description, and then there's LD, because what tends to happen is that every Revit project, it's going to have one of these three values added to it, right? So the first thing you want to do is that when you look at the loading, okay, this is where you're going to go into the filter. So what you're going to do is that when you go in here, I do not want to show anything that's loading. So what I'm going to do, type description does not equal loading. Okay. Now, if you want to be safe, I typically go to does not contain. Okay. The reason why is that Revit is very case sensitive. If people put this in small caps, that would not activate it. So I would just say do not contain. Loading, okay? The reason why I say do not contain is because regardless of what special case you're in, it's going to find that value. If it's a loading, it's going to just filter it out, okay? You can even put a small cap as well. You don't have to be like a sentence case. When you hit OK, you notice that, does not contain loading. Notice that loading stuff just goes away. Okay? So that's how you filter things out. Now, the next thing I want to do is that since I got the level count, which is okay, it's okay to kind of like keep adding stuff onto this. Okay? Great, I get my parking count now. So now I want to break it up into regular, small, handicap. Next thing you want to do is that you go back, go to sort, and then you can say then by type. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, once you do that, you notice that it's going to split it more like this. Okay, this is kind of like how it's done. What you can do here is that you can hide this. Okay. A lot of time what I typically do is that I want to check and see if someone actually go in there and duplicate the parking stall. Let's say if you see a family name with parking space 1 and then there's a regular parking space, it means that someone accidentally duplicated the thing. most of the cases, I would prefer if user stick to one parking and not having too many duplicates of family types. The reason why is that later on, it's going to kind of screw up your schedule because you're going to have multiple of families to deal with rather than just stick with one. So the other thing is that you can hide it from here. I'm just going to say hide column. But before you hide anything, you normally just put in a color, okay, just a yellow, okay, just to indicate that when user wants to kind of expand on all the schedule, okay, they can know that, oh, that yellow one is actually meant for, not shown. So what you can do is that you can just go hide a column, okay? It's always good practice. So what I typically do is that I always like to do that, okay? I like to do that, and just because it helps people to kind of like visualize what they're seeing, okay? Same as model, so I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to shade. Okay, so now here I'm going to go hide column. Now, since the column is hidden, you can always call back. Okay, so what you do is that if you want that schedule back, there's a couple things. You can say unhide all. Okay, but if you want, like, unhide all means that it's going to show everything, but I'm just going to undo. But if you want to call up certain one, you can always go back to the formatting. Okay. And this is where you're going to say, okay, description, you see the hidden field, you can just turn them on, okay? That way, that is the only field you want it to come up. Okay. Now, you can also resize, all right? You can always resize your schedule. So what I typically do is that I like to keep it within, like, fraction, like 0.5, 0.75, 1, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you see like a really weird number, yeah, just always put it like a perfect number. The reason why is that later on when you're dealing with 10, 20 different schedule, you want your schedule to look consistent. Okay, so this is why I always say resize it, works well, and then it will help you down the road. Okay, now this doesn't help you that much. Okay, the reason why I said it doesn't help you that much is because right now you have level 5, level 5, level 4, level 4. Okay, it looks very annoying. Okay, like when you look at the schedule, okay, it looks fine, but the thing is that you want to split it up based on the level. So the first thing you would do is that you go back to sorting. Okay, first thing I would do is that add that to a header. Okay, you can add a blank line, and and then when you hit OK, you notice that it will split it basically based on the level. You can always click on this. I'm going to go shading again, and then just hide this field. Okay. So that way you have a level. Now you split it up based on regular, small stall, blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is how you do it. Now, sometimes what tends to happen is that you notice that there is regular stall, it's called EV, right? You want that to be the same as the regular stall. So what I typically do next is that if you want this thing to combine together, you go back, you kind of have to use not the type, but type comment, okay? Because the reason why is that this type comment has both of those values the same. Well, when you have the type, sometimes what happens is that when you create a bunch of types, you're going to have one for commercial, one is for residential, one could be something else, one could be like bigger size, one could be like, let's say, parallel parking. That could be a regular stall, okay? So this is why, the type comment is going to say, okay, if it's all the regular, just group them together, okay? So I'm going to switch it to type comment, okay? You notice that here, you would see that there is a blank line. The reason why there's a blank line is because when you combine the two values and the two values are different, it's going to give you a blank line. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this. Cancel. I'm going to just hit a shade and just go hide. And same thing, just hide this column. Okay, now what you have is that you have the total. Now, if you want to count total per level, next thing you want to do is that you want to go back to sorting. You see the footer here? I want to count the total per level, okay? And the total is going to go here. The next thing I want to do is that I want to go down to count and flip it to the right side, okay, so that they all align to the right side of the cell. When you hit OK, notice that it adds in the total count per level, okay? This is your grand total. But the thing is that this is why when you go back here, you would add title and total and say this is the grand total, okay? And then when you hit OK, it'll tell the user that this is the grand total, and then this is basically total per level. Okay, very simple. Okay, very simple stuff. Now, the next thing you want to do is that you want to kind of spice up your schedule. So the first thing you want to do is that you want to go to formatting. Okay, or actually appearance is the word. So here, this is where you want to change the text. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to choose 316 Arial bold. The header, I'll just go 1.8 bold, and then the data you can say just 1.8, just regular 1.8. Okay, you can go smaller, 332nd, but I'll leave it up to you. But those are basically how you change it so that you have a text title. Okay. So here, what I typically like to do is that I like to go in here and just make them kind of expand on this. Now, here what I would like to do is that you can override this value. Okay, you can say this is going to be parking type. If you modify this, it will not modify the actual value. So what happens is that if you want to reset it back to the original, okay, you can always go back to, let's say this is the type comment. You see the parking at the header. You can change it here as well, okay? Or else you can just type in the type comment. Okay, doesn't matter. So parking type. Okay. Any questions so far? No question. Okay, good. So here at the header, I like to put in color. So what I typically do is that I like to put in a shading and say make it gray. Okay, and then also same thing, I'll say make it gray. Now, what you could do is that you could also do this, where you could say, okay, give me a border, but I do not want the vertical line. All I need is just the horizontal line, and hit OK. So that button is right here. If you first you have to highlight the schedule. Next thing you want to do is that you want to click on this border, and then this is where you basically gonna configure it. If you want to make it thicker, then you can say, okay, I want it to be medium line. Okay, so I'm gonna force it to all medium line. Okay. So what happens is that it's gonna add in that medium line. You will not see it in the schedule until you create a sheet and put it on a sheet. So here I'm just gonna create a regular sheet. Let's say Loma 17 landscape for now. Okay, and then the first thing you want to do is that find where's that parking schedule. You see that there's a parking schedule right here. Now, sometimes it's very difficult. What I typically do is that I like to put in like 0 at the beginning. All right. The reason why I like to put 0 at the beginning is because sometimes what happens is that schedule will go to the top rather than the bottom. Okay. You see that it's going to go there. I think the newer version, 2018, 2019, I'm not sure if the new service pack has this sorted, because there is a new feature where you can actually sort a lot of this by type, right? So it gives you a schedule. You can schedule it like how you do this, right? How you schedule your views. So that's in Autodesk. They say they're going to release it, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so once you have this, you do not want to show this 0- parking schedule. It doesn't make sense, right? So what you could do is that you could hit the reset button. Okay, I like to hit the reset. Oh, actually, no, clear cell, sorry. There's a reset, and then there's also clear cell. What reset does is that it's going to reset it back to the default value. Sometimes what happens is that I like to basically say, okay, I do not want to show the border here. I like to show the medium line right down below. And then here, I'm just going to go clear cell, and I'm just going to say overall parking. Okay, just as a title. Next thing I want to do is that I'm going to close out of that. Okay, actually, let's see, where am I? Okay, so I'm in here. The first thing I want to do is that you just drag and drop. Okay. Yeah, you notice. Yeah, I'm noticing that it's the column, the border sometimes is a little bit finicky. So what I want to do is that I want to just turn them off. There you go. That's what it looks like. Any questions so far? No questions. Now, I forgot to mention is that every time we do a parking count, you always want to check this relation. Okay. You notice that why you need to know you need to verify it, because in here there's warnings. Okay, which means that your parking count is not correct. All right. So what you're going to do is that we're going to go to the overall, let's say the 3D, just to verify where there's a fault in this. Okay, because what happens is that if you don't give the right schedule, what tends to happen is that client might say, oh, you provided 1164, but your count is 1160. What happened, right? Be careful with it, because client could get back to you and then, things will just break loose. So this is why I always go in, turn off everything, and then just only show the parking. Okay? So this is where you're going to say, select all the objects. Okay? Actually, let's go back to parking. Okay, there we go. So the first thing I would do is that when you do this, I typically like to export, but you can do it to say, show me where it is. But I like to export out so that I have a record of it. Okay, and then I'm just going to use the HTML date modify. Okay, just open it up, and this is where I'm going to say, okay, all of this parking are under object off. Okay, you're not going to see it. So what I typically do is that double check and see if the object off. Okay, so here I'm just going to go VB, work set, make sure that those objects are turned on. All right, so now I can verify that, okay, you have one here, you can show me, but sometimes it will not show you, okay, so it will tell you that, oh, okay, it's right there. So very careful, okay. So this is why I said I like to restore, something that you guys could, depending on how user does this, right? You notice that right now there's like two overlapping, okay. Sometimes you have to be careful, because sometimes when people copy their objects, they copy it and then put it on top of each other. And what that tends to happen is that it's basically duplicating the parking count. So you kind of have to verify and say if this is correct or not correct. If it's not correct, just get rid of it. Okay. So same thing happens to here. Okay. It's just a spot check, right? Just delete. Okay. Good. And then let's say I'm going to verify it again and see if there's a warning. Okay. Just say it's only one. So I'm going to go in. There you go. So there is one right there. I'm going to hit delete. So this is very important for people. Like if you want to do it, delete. Where's my delete button? Sorry, I'm using a keyboard. Oh, there you go. Big bold delete. Okay. Yeah, you keep verifying it until you get no error warning. Okay. Right now it still have it. I'm gonna go show again. Show me where it is. Sometimes you can't tell. Okay. Okay. Looks like it's this one right here. Yeah, there we go. That's the one. Hit delete. Oh, pin object, not delete, blah, blah, blah. You see what I'm saying is that do not pin any objects, because the minute you start pinning stuff, it makes it very difficult for people to delete stuff. And sometimes it's wrong, you don't even know it. Okay, just as a good practice. Okay, hit delete that. Okay, there we go. So you kind of have to continue this on and on until you find that, okay, there's no duplication in your model. Okay, if you're clear, you should not have any warning. Okay, that means that your parking count is actually correct. Now, previously it was saying 1,000, right? So what I'm saying is that there's a double overlay, and then it just reduced the parking count by 200. So this is why I always tell people you have to verify it, because if you don't verify it, you don't know where you did wrong. Okay. In this case, it's kind of like I'm just doing a spot check, okay, as the clash and all that stuff. Okay, any questions so far? So that's the first thing. Now, once you finish your schedule, if you want to basically create kind of like a percentage, let's say you want to know if you have how many percentage of regular car stall versus how many other car. So the first thing you want to do is that you kind of have to create a value called the calculated value. Okay. Unfortunately, there is a button called here. It's called percentage. It doesn't, like when I click on this, right? The first thing it's going to do is that it's going to ask you, what do you want to do it with the grand total? Notice that the count itself doesn't list in here. Okay. The reason why count doesn't exist is because it's not a parameter. Okay. So what I typically like to do is that I like to add a parameter. Okay. Just add like a number. Make sure they're a type. All right. You notice, like when I said always have one family, this is the reason why, because the more complicated your schedule is going to get, the more parameter you add in, the less you have to manage with other families. The minute you have like 10, 20 different types of families, sometimes you lose track of this. Okay, one family, keep it simple, and you have no issue of generating this schedule. So here I'm just going to say object count. Okay, it doesn't have to be share parameter. Okay, because since this object count is only saying I got one count. Okay, just the count number itself. Object count. I want it to be number. I always put a number. Do not put it as an integer. Okay, integer is like 1a, 1b. You have to be careful. Okay, do not put it under length. Okay, length is just a distance. Always put under number. All right, you notice that this object been created. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is that I'm going to go into the object count. It's already been created. Add it in. Okay. What happens here is that you notice that there is 111 object count, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to put 1 in the list. Oh, that's the unfortunate thing because, okay, that's not good. The reason why it didn't work is because this parameter, it's an instance parameter. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, so what we have to do is that it depends on how this project is set up. Sometimes object count, you do not want to use instance parameters. Sometimes you want to use type. For parking count, bike storage, you want to use a type. For areas, it only accepts instance parameter. Okay, sometimes you have no other choice. Okay, so here I'm just going to create another parameter. Just say object type, object count type. Okay, just add a name to it, and then just say this is going to be a number. Okay. Now I'm going to remove this since this is a not useful number. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is that when I add 1, say all the handicaps are going to have 1. Do you want to do it? Yes. And I'm just going to add the same thing. It's going to ask you if you want regular. Yes. Do it. And I'm just going to add 1. Yes. Okay. Going back, why this thing doesn't work. Okay. Okay, notice I was saying, do you want an EV? Yes, okay. So now it's going to say, it's going to have 1. When I go formatting, and then click on this and say, I want to calculate total, and then go to right side of your alignment and hit OK. You notice that this value and this values are equal. Okay, good. That's what you want. So here, I'm just going to call this count. And in here, I'm just going to say, again, use shading so that you know what's been used and what's not been used, and then just hide it. Okay? You can remove it, doesn't matter, but I prefer to hide it because sometimes you need that value later on. Okay? Here, I'm just going to say, put that in here. And I'm just going to basically say border, turn off those borders on. Oh yeah, I forgot to make the border all 4. Okay, I'm just going to make them all 4. And do not show this. Okay, now getting back to the percentage, the next thing you want to do is that you want to go edit. You want to use the calculated value. Okay, this is where you're going to say percentage. Okay, you notice that right now it's highlighting your object count type. Okay, because it's a parameter now. So what you're going to do is that I'm going to call this percentage, and it's going to be divided by the grand total of it. Okay, when you hit OK, you notice that it's going to give you that percentage. So here, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to actually go to sorting and group formatting, percentage, keep it to the right. Now, in addition, you can also do field formatting. So let's say, for example, you're rounding up, it's actually 0 decimal places. You can always say, I want it to be 2 decimal places, and say OK, and then OK. What happens is that it's going to give you that count. But sometimes people like it to be in 1 decimal places. So you go formatting, percentage, field formatting, and then say, just give it like 1%. Okay? So that basically split it up, but it's not very useful. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Because since this is a template, the next thing you want to do is that you want to duplicate this. Okay? Once you have one set up, you can duplicate this and then reconfigure it to whatever value you want. So I'm just going to leave this percentage as it is. The next thing you want to do is that you want to duplicate this. Okay? And then I'm just going to call this thing total. Okay, so what do I want this parking type count? So here, what I want is that my goal is to get handicap, regular, and small, trying to get the total, trying to get the percentage. So I do not need the level because it's not useful to me. So the next thing you want to do is that in here, you're going to go in and you're going to change this. Okay, you want to turn this off. You want to turn it to type comments and then turn this off. So basically, you're taking this value and put it up there. For the level, you want to hide it. Okay, it's good. There we go. So now, this is a much better snapshot of what you have. This is where you're going to say, okay, turn off the blank line. And there we go. So this thing is much more accurate, okay, than the previous count. And then you can just basically just drag and drop. Okay, so this is already done. I'm going to leave it as it is and just go into the view itself. Okay. Yeah, sorry, previous formatting. Once you add like let's say a new value, it will always reset it back to the irregular. So you kind of have to constantly go back and then just just realign it. Okay, so I'm just going to drag and drop. Oh, actually, that's the wrong one. Sorry, drag the wrong one. So I did the total. Okay, there we go. Okay, those are basically the simple stuff. I mean, sometimes like the client wants to know, oh, how many cars do you have? Okay, we have 38, 520, and then 120. And this one is basically a snapshot of breaking down for different level. Now, the great thing about what I said before is that you could copy this to multiple levels. Let's say, for example, you want your parking count, and then you want to go to every single level. The first thing you want to do is that you just go copy here, okay? and then you go into your schedule, and it's going to go new schedule. Just go. And what you can do here is that you can just go edit, paste, current view, okay? And then you just drag it, put it there. Okay, it's a good way. Like if you have a plan that like a parking plan and stuff like that, a lot of time I just create one schedule and just dump it there, and just use the same schedule and just copy, copy, copy. Okay, you could go one step further and just break down the level parking, but I just don't bother because it's a lot of work. So I just do this one parking and then just go level and then just copy one for level 2, level P3, P4, and P5. Okay. So any questions so far? Okay. Let's say the next thing you want to do is that you want to add in like a value in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you like how you, remember when I show you can actually put a color shading to the vertical line, but not the horizontal line. So here I'm just going to demonstrate how you can do that, okay? First thing I'm going to do is that it needs a value, okay? You see that there's one called the conditional formatting, okay? First thing I'm going to do is that I'm just going to add in a value in here, say a number. Just say this is a cell color. I'm just going to call it cell color. You could do a typo, for instance, but in here I want to do an instance parameter. Okay, just to keep it simple. Cell color, and then what I'm going to do is that in the conditional formatting, okay, what you're going to do is that your percentage test. Well, actually, no. Is it percentage? Say equal, then less than. Oh, I see. Okay, I see what it's doing. So cell color, let's say it's greater than, 0. Let's say 1, for instance. And in here, you can say you can pick any color you want. Say I'm gonna go, yeah, let's do that color. So if cell color is equals 1. And then if you go into here and keep on doing it for all the conditional formats, so I'm going to say cell color equal or greater than 1. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm telling Revit is that if the cell color is 1, make it into this color. Okay, let's say I'm going to do the same thing, conditional formatting. Oh, sorry, it's cell color greater than 1. Make it into this color. Okay, so you kind of have to do it through pretty much all the things, like all your values. Okay, conditional formatting. Again, I'm just going to go cell color is greater than 1. Make it this color. Good. And then you do the same thing. You just go to every single one. Just pick the cell color. It's greater than 1. Make it this color. Okay. All right, let's test this thing out. Okay, right now it doesn't have anything. Before I do anything, I'm going to ungroup this whole thing because what tends to happen is that to make this demonstration work, I have to ungroup everything. Okay. And I'm just going to ungroup it just as a demonstration purpose. Don't worry, this is actually a detached file. Like if you guys are worried about like, oh, what happened, right? Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 1 value. 1. Say 1. Oh, okay, it didn't show up. That's kind of a bummer. Okay. Okay, so I have to go back in here and see what is going on. So conditional value. Oh, I see. Cell color. Let's say cell color is greater than 1. Make this color. Okay, let's say I'm going to make it 2. Aha! There we go. There we go. Okay, this is color. You can have different color. Okay, so let's say if I want to put in, like, let's say the percentage is going to be a different color. You can say, okay, cell color percentage, and say conditional formatting. Cell color, if it's equal, to 1, make it a different color. So let's say I'm going to make it this color. Oh, actually, I should say, oh, I see. You cannot add more than one value. So you just basically what you're going to do is just say greater than 1. You can change it one color and then say, okay, you see that your color changes. So you can have like different value. Typically, what I would do with this is that if you have a lot of schedule, and then you want to make one schedule differentiate between each other, I usually use the cell color just to say this color is this color, this color, and this color. So it makes it a little bit easier to read, I guess, okay? So if you want to do that option, yes, you can do it for horizontal. Okay? Any questions so far? Pretty self-explanatory? Okay. There's also, you can actually add in a couple tricks within the schedule is that you can actually add in a value. Let's say, for example, if you want to have like up arrow, down arrow, left or right, whatever, right? So what you could do is that you can add a bunch of cells. I'm just going to create one, just a dummy one. I'm just going to call it type and then just go with text. Okay. I'm going to call this dummy text symbol. Just as a demonstration, okay? So within here, you could actually say for this dummy one, let's see. What I typically like to do with a dummy is that you can change the font. Okay, I'm not going to save that. So you can change it to something else. So here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change it to, let's say, Wang Ding, right? Just as a symbol. Okay, for this one, I'm just going to say, just change it back to Arial. Arial. Change it back to Arial. Okay, just keep it as it is, dummy text. So what I mean by the wingding is that when you go to character map, okay, when you go down to this, last one, wingding, you can pick different symbols. Let's say I wanted this to be this arrow, okay? And you can say enter, and then all the handicap is going to have different arrows. So what this does is that if you want to add bulletin, like bullets, I know that some people say, oh, can I add bullets into your schedule? This is how you do it, okay? If you're creating like a schedule, like a note using schedule, this is how I would do it. Okay, very useful. You see that there's number 1, number 2, number 3, right? So sometimes what I would do is that I use the symbol, say select 1, copy that, and say this is 1, and enter. And then this one is number 2, select, copy, put it in here. Yes. Actually, sometimes it doesn't pick up or register, but you just have to select it and then just copy it and paste, copy. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't like to do it. But in any case, that gives you an idea because you could put in a sunshine, you can put in airplane. Now, if you have like your own like font, this is a perfect way to do it. Okay. If you have like a Hebrew or like Chinese language, it's the same thing, same idea. Let's say, for example, you have a regular and then you want to like swap it with some other weird text. That's how you do it. Okay, that's pretty much it for the first part of the basic scheduling. Okay, you guys have any questions? No? Clear as mud? Any questions so far, guys? I hope that was informative because it allows you to kind of like say, you know what, you're not restricted. You just have to kind of find ways to kind of like change a lot of the schedule to whatever color. Next week, I'm going to be talking about a little bit more of how to modify some of this. So say, for example, a perfect example is when you have a room and that room does not jive with the room, with the door, and then you want to override that room with another value. So next week, I'm going to talk about that as well. Okay, that ends for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm always open. I'm just making sure that people just send me emails so I have a track record of all the questions been asked, and I could forward you some of the resource information. making it much easier rather than if I talk to you, sometimes I don't know what we have as a conversation. So I'd rather have an email and we would just talk and then I'll just reply to your email and then this is the step you should take. All right. Okay. Hopefully this is informative, and then hopefully next week I'm gonna do the more advanced feature of the scheduling. All right. That's it for today. Thank you very much.